And so with that, that's about us, that's logistics. And so I want to give us some space to get to know who's on the call. And I'll start off with introducing myself personally and then call you out one by one, just for ease of the process. And so I'll start. So I'm Rebecca, I'm the communications wizard here, and I've been working with these folks for about a year and a half, a little bit longer. And what brought me to this work is the importance of process and structure to get us where we want to be. I've always been really interested in that in some ways. And I also wanted to enter more fully into the worker co-op movement to gain a better understanding of what economic justice looks like for me, as I come from an interesting fragmented class background. So I wanted to dive into that more through the worker co-op movement. And I currently live and have been in New Orleans for about 5 years. I'm originally from California, and outside of Brown Sky, I do anti-racist organizing with the collective here and try to make time for dancing. And I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation today because collaborative leadership has come up in so many contexts of my life. And when it's not working, it's really not working. It's really uncomfortable to figure out how to move forward with some of the teams I've been a part of. So excited to share these tools with you. And I personally recently completed this level 1 certification at the end of 2017. So I'm excited to talk about humanizing and supportive leadership a little bit more later in the call. So I'll pass the mic to Cecile with that. And you're muted, Cecile.
The good old mute button. Yeah, well, I'm delighted to be here with you all today. I am Cecile. I'm one of the co-founders of Round Sky Solutions, and I live near Montpelier, Vermont. I've been a social entrepreneur for about 30 years, and really I'm here with you today because in that 30 years, most of my efforts were cooperative in nature, collaborative by values, and yet I saw a lot of my experience in organizations was less than ideal, and I was eventually motivated by the sort of waste of time and energy and creativity that poor leadership represents, and was inspired to take up a deep dive into organizational and individual development in search of an answer. In particular, I was curious about what power is and developed some theories about power to map or explain the dynamics I commonly saw in organizations. And I synthesized this research into collaborative leadership and created a map of what organizations are already communicating about and need to communicate about, and a set of processes called CoLab that reliably deliver healthy forms of power in action. I published a book, Collaboration That Works, a ruthlessly practical handbook for a generative world, as a training manual that summarizes this research and introduces CoLab for organizations. So I know we have other folks on the call today. Rebecca, will you call folks out?
Yeah, thanks for your introduction. And I'm just going to go down the list that I have here. Jamie, you're up first. Would you introduce yourself, your organization, if that feels relevant, and your affiliation with us, and everything else you'd like to say?
Everything else. Okay. Yeah. So I'm Jamie Kearney, and I am an integral coach and a body worker. That's my profession. I work with a group called the Wellness Collective. And, I connected on a personal level with Cecile. First, we just had a lot of shared values and ideas, I think, and then got more and more interested in this work that she was doing. And I think the big pull for me is just my orientation. I'm very inwardly focused. I'm really into meditation and writing and philosophizing, and I'm kind of, if left to my own devices, probably would interact minimally with people, except that it's really important to interact with people because we're all totally interdependent. So and in my work, I'm basically in private practice. I work with a collective, but I work for myself. and all my work with people tends to be one-on-one, right? So I found that there was this tendency to get siloed, and I wanted to have a bigger impact. I wanted to be able to at least have a better understanding of what happens on a macro level and how to be skillful kind of systemically. And also, you know, again, there's this self-selecting thing with the people I spend time with, the people I work with. And I was just really starting to feel that that wasn't enough to just not interact with people who see the world really differently than me, that I wanted to actually be able to expand my perspective, to be able to connect with people who live in a very different way and see the world really differently, and also to be able to act in a way that helps bring us closer together, that helps build relationship with people who have a very different way of operating. And I am a level 1 graduate, and that program was enormously helpful in starting to build those capacities, and I'm excited to kind of keep growing in that way. So that's it for me. That's all the things, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for being here. And Kristen?
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm very happy to be here. My name's Kristen Del Simone. I am actually a current student or learner in the CLCP course that you all are exploring today. Professionally, I'm a leadership coach, facilitator, consultant. I help organizations. If you're familiar with the Reinventing Organizations work, I help organizations go teal. And I also lead a lot of volunteer teams that are doing their work collaboratively. And that's actually what brought me to Round Sky Solutions in this course in particular. And what I'm finding is I don't want to lead teams anymore. I actually want to be in leadership practice with my teams and to background leadership as an action and activity, and foreground more leadership as a practice and way of being. And that's what I've discovered so far in my experience of CoLab, that it actually meets that need very, very much. So I'm really excited to be here to share just my experiences in CoLab so far, and make myself available to answer any questions for anybody.
Great, thanks. Thanks for being here. And I think someone on the phone, Josh.
Hi, this is Josh. Am I on mute?
Yep, you're working.
You can hear me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my name is Josh Singer. I am a licensed acupuncturist here in Montpelier, Vermont, and I've recently taken over the position of president of the Vermont Acupuncture Association, which is an organization right now of members, maybe 50, 60 members. The previous president had resigned, and I was the vice president. So I just sort of took over this role. And another board member of our organization suggested that I kind of contact you guys and learn more about leadership. As I'm not that experienced as a leader, but I think I may have some natural tendencies for this. And this role is up in November, and I'm not sure if it's something I want to continue. Meanwhile, I think there's a lack of structure within our organization that has existed for maybe 15 years or something, maybe 20 years. And our current board of 5-6 people, there's sort of a lack of, I guess I could say, structure and I guess organization, that I'm just exploring ways to help and be a better leader and create better structure within our organization. So, you know, I don't know that much about this organization, but it sounds like it could be for us. I don't know about me individually just being part of things, or my board as a group could benefit from this. So I'm just sort of jumping on the call to kind of hear more and see if this could be a potential fit for my organization.
Nice.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Josh.
Yeah, thank you.
Virtually meet you.
Yes.
And Mary. I'll try unmuting this other phone, and let's see how that works. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. That's the. I was talking. I didn't realize you couldn't hear me.
Okay, great.
I'm Mary Garrett. I live in Bennington, Vermont. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I am a retired human rights attorney and have been involved in civil/human rights since the late 50s. So I'm an old lady. And one thing that I firmly believe relative to building a social justice movement in our country is that it's all based on relationships if we want to stick and stay through the hard times, and that B, we each need to be leaders. So I am really anxious to learn. We sometimes have I actually was notified about this call by our Rights and Democracy staff, but I'm on other boards, both at the state and national level, that I think could benefit from this kind of training, because I think what I find in all the organizations to which I belong is that frequently our allies feel as though they're competing with us instead of working as a team. And if we are all scrambling for the crumbs, we're never going to be able to eat the meal at the table. And so I really want to learn more skills in terms of bringing people into collaborative efforts.
Nice.
Thanks for being here. Glad you could make it. Kim Marie. If you're speaking, you're on mute. I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
I blocked myself out. I'm doing. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I just want to say hi, Cecile, and I'm grateful to be here and be a part of this sort of a last minute thing. I'm a minister at All Souls Interfaith, and that's kind of why I've reached out, and I believe in what Round Sky does. I'm looking definitely to get and gain more leadership skills. I'm new to being a leader, recently ordained in May, so just looking for ways to continue to support the community and find peace within the leader in me too. I struggle sometimes with being a leader, so there's that piece too. And yeah, just showing up curious and showing up with an open heart that wants to learn and grow.
Great. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm not part of graduate programs or anything. This is I've heard about Round Sky in the past through Cecile and Daniel, who are friends, and I'm looking to possibly collaborate more and to try to learn more about, to see if it's the right fit for me too.
Great.
So that's why I'm here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for offering it.
Absolutely. And the next person on this list is Atika.
Hello. Hi all. So I'm a participant in the winter cohort of level 1. And so I did the collab 101 course before, and I found it as I was searching for, let's say, learning opportunities around collaboration and leadership. And I found that, and I'm very glad I did. I did the collab course and I loved it, so I decided to embark on the level 1 journey. And one of the best decisions of the past few months. And great team, great coach, and just great experience overall. And really, I'm really enjoying how it really fits into my current life, personal and professional journey. So it's great. And other than that, I'm a facilitator on like running workshops generally around dialogue, communication, co-creation, collaboration, and things like that. So very much centered on the idea of listening to the other and listening to yourself. And in the future, I would like to be able to include a deeper accompaniment around questions of organizational development, interpersonal, personal communication, and collab. Well, collab and level 1 are really helping me going in that direction.
Great. Thanks for being here. And Mariko, please correct me if I pronounce your name wrong.
You got it. Oh, getting a little feedback. Is there any way you can? I
Oh no.
I don't know if you can hear that. So Kim Marie and I work together, and I had my computer on mute, and so I'm getting this weird distortion. So my name is Mariko. You got my name right. I work at All Souls Interfaith Gathering. I am a office manager and marketing communications person. And so I assist Kim Marie with the ministry, sort of the office end of that support. I also support the events and all of the other different things that happen through our building. I'm trying really hard not to be distracted by the distortion. So I think I'm just going to end. I attended one of your webinars before. I'm excited to learn a little bit more. I really appreciated a lot of the things, the content that you folks had to share. And so I guess I'm looking to learn a little bit more about what this program is all about, if I have a place in it, and how those skills can translate to all the different areas that all the different areas that I'm involved in here, which is a lot. So the collaborative component to it is really appealing to me. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks. And the next time you talk, if you have, I think you said Kim Marie's right next to you, maybe if you just unmute her mic, that might help for next time. And welcome, Mabel. Here, I can unmute you. If you're talking, I'll, okay, try now.
Yes.
Perfect.
So I live in Brooklyn, New York. I am Mabel Valles. I'm coming from Venezuela. It's my country of origin. Here in Brooklyn, I create Residencia. It's a community space for change makers, artists, visionaries, healers. I'm interested in social change and entrepreneurial process for social change. And I just found this in Facebook this morning, and I decided to come and know what this is about. I don't listen this before. I don't have references, and I'm interested in to know what it is. And also, I'm an artist. My idea about social change is to create a foundation of artists, change makers that can. It's like a guild of we together working in processes that allows us to have a better economic system and also more impact in the world, because we are many, but we are not all together. I mean, not all together doesn't make sense, but I think to have associations could be more helpful to create the impact we are looking for. So that.
Yeah. Great. So glad you stumbled upon it. Welcome. And there's one person left here with the area code 512. I'm gonna unmute you. You can introduce yourself.
Hi. Yeah, this is Annalise Lotman. I am calling from Austin, Texas. And I'm a cooperative developer here. that job for me is about one part business planning, one part business planning, and two parts governance and facilitation and just modeling democratic decision making and leadership to groups that are embarking on collaborative processes, often for the first time. And I have a legal background, and I'm drawing on that, and a teaching background, and I'm drawing on that, but I don't have a lot of formal tools that I'm really able to bring into play for a lot of those situations. And so I'm really interested in that piece of it. The governance and democratic decision-making and collaboration piece is, for me, the most exciting part of what I do, and I want to do more of it, but I'd like to have more tricks in my bag for that kind of work.
Thanks for being here. Great. And then I think that's everyone. Thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. It's so amazing to be on the call with all of you from so many different places and perspectives and realities. So I'm going to pass this back to Cecile, and we can get into some of the content here.
Yeah. Well, delighted to meet you all, and thanks again for being here today. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits and challenges of collaborative leadership and explore how our program, the CLCP1, the Collaborative Leadership Certification Program, is helping to support leaders in achieving their goals. So first, I want to start by looking at why collaborative leadership is so important, including hearing from our former and current students, and followed by that, the details. We'll cover a little bit about the details of what we go over in the course, along with logistics and pricing and deadlines. And then we'll have some time for an open Q&A, although we really encourage you to post your questions in the chat box as we go along. Also, I just wanted to mention that Jamie, who is one of our graduates, is able to be here with us until the last 15 minutes of the call. So if you have questions for him in particular, please post those in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get to those before he has to leave. So on that note, I want to dive into a question about how we get to workable collaborative leadership for ourselves, for our teams. It can be really challenging, especially in this day and age with so many competing and complex demands. It could be that maybe the workload in your team is uneven, or perhaps there are really important details being dropped. Maybe it's unclear who's doing what on your team, and that's creating frustration and conflict. There's a whole long list of symptoms, but I want to start with the question of why collaborative leadership as a form of leadership is so important by asking the current and former students on this call, what helped you realize that developing your collaborative leadership was important to you? And I'll start with Jamie. Jamie, I think you're on mute.
Now I'm unmuted and we're all good. So
okay, good to go.
Of all the pieces. So I kind of mentioned a little bit, which is just I think everyone has their own orientation or tendency, and mine happens to be really individual and really internal, and I appreciate that, but at the same time, I was really coming up against the limits of that right around the time where Cecile was introducing some of these ideas. And I just think having training to pull me out of my default mode and really have more tools in my toolbox around understanding others' points of view was super helpful. And that's a developmental process. It's not just about getting like, oh yeah, other people are important. It's about actually practicing living in that way so that I can let go of myself and my sort of impulsive meaning making and really get curious and have things to anchor me in that curiosity. to look in certain places, have different lenses, different tools. The other thing that came to mind for me is I think that as human beings, there are a lot of complex tasks, especially in this culture, that we can do intuitively. And like driving is one of them, right? It's just something that we can be doing 4 or 5 different things while we're driving, and somehow we manage to survive that regularly. But that's because we've had a lot of practice and we've had some kind of instruction, and there are these rules for the road that are kind of established and internalized to the point where it can become intuitive, and then it's something that we just do, and it's like, oh, how did I even get here? I don't remember, but we're fine. But you know, I was thinking about how organizations run, and you know, the patterns of leadership, especially that our education system often instills in people, are certainly instilled in me. And I'm sort of thinking that right now, with the complexity of this culture, all the changes that are happening in technology, and the beginning of a global village, it's kind of like the driving situation. Like, we're in hover cars right now, and we have to deal with navigating with all these people in all these different dimensions. And we're, in a lot of cases, I found myself, I'm using like horse and buggy rules, and it really doesn't work. And so, and it's challenging because this isn't map territory. And one of the feedback, I mean, CoLab's a complex system, and one of the pieces of constructive feedback I get is like, well, you know, do we really have to do this? I mean, we all understand each other. Wouldn't it just be easier to like just open our hearts and be nice and hang out and just listen to each other, and it'll work itself out? And it's like, yeah, that's totally great if we're all on the same page. But in a lot of ways, this is really unmapped territory. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the next year or two, let alone the next decade. There's just so much novelty. And so to be able to actually explore some of that unmapped territory and have practices and there's so much, Cecile, that you've synthesized based on your experience and distilled. So it is, I think, as simple as something like this can get, without reducing any of these important new domains we're exploring. And so that's my hope is, and that's, I guess, what I felt in doing some of this is the complexity of the change that seems to be going on a social level, and just in my own personal life, feels much more manageable to me. Not that I know what it's going to look like, but it's like I have what I need to train in to adapt. I have a sense of what these new kind of roads are and what the rules of the road are, and so I'm way less likely to bump into people going, you know, 300 miles an hour or something. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Nicely put. Great. I'd love to hear from you too, Kristen. What helped you realize that developing your collaborative leadership was important to you?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Cecile. Oh boy. I came to CoLab because I was trying to practice collaborative leadership, and I was doing it poorly. And I will say, I have a graduate degree in leadership. Like, I should know this stuff, right? You would think. And the team that I was leading with, or co-leading with, practicing leadership with, are also scholar practitioners in leadership, and we could not figure it out. We were making mistakes all over the place. And so it's more than just the intention to practice collaborative leadership. There's actually, what I realized was I really needed the structures. We collectively really needed the structures to allow us to truly be collaborative and to truly practice leadership. And so when I discovered CoLab, it was like an epiphany. And since I've introduced the concept to my team as well, it's been an epiphany for others.
Lovely. Thank you, Kristen. And how about you, Atika?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so before I start, I just wanted to notify you that I won't be able to stay very long. I forgot to say it at the beginning. So let's say about 15 more minutes. And then yes, unfortunately, I have to run out. And then the question was, when did I?
Yes. What helped you realize that developing your collaborative leadership was important to you?
That is a tricky question. Because I'm not sure when the shift or the click happened. It was part of a process that started a few years ago when I had difficulties with my personal and family life and social life, where I realized that communication was a big part of it, part of the problem. So I started working on communication, and that was reflected in my work. And little by little, I got kind of dragged into the world of entrepreneurship, teal organizations, and all of that. And I started connecting the dots because it really, all these different parts emerged one after the other. And at the beginning, it was kind of just randomly appearing, and then after a while, I started actually connecting the dots. And to be honest, I wasn't really looking into collaborative leadership as such when I was searching for experiences, opportunities, and resources. So to be honest, until I found CoLab, I never really used the term collaborative leadership. I just used a lot of the things that are included in CoLab in my daily life, or at least was exposed to it, but without really naming the terms. So yes, it was part of it was the result, or not the result, because the process is still going on, but it was part of a long process, and it was, I would say, kind of fate. I don't know, it just happened.
Lovely. Thank you, Atika. Yeah. So our journeys can start in a lot of different places with a lot of different sort of questions and reflections that bring us into collaborative leadership together. And I guess I would just add from myself a few of the things that spurred me into looking at collaborative leadership as a form and understanding why it was important is that without effective collaborative leadership, we often get missed opportunities, especially when we're trying to embody collaborative leadership. There can be just sort of gaps in our understanding and opportunities that we could have grasped that we can't quite yet. Another is invisibility of work, often in unequal distribution across the same team or even the organization is tricky. It leads to burnout and also people feeling underappreciated. And at the same time, the inability to sort of redistribute work more effectively is in the way of making good change on this front. And so I would like to take a couple more minutes and just circle back to our current and former students and ask you to just articulate in particular how has the leadership program helped with the challenges that you came to the program with. So what's been most powerful for you about the course so far? How has it changed your leadership, and how have you personally grown? And I'll start with Jamie again.
I will unmute again. That's great. So this was the most exciting thing for me was, well, there were so many, one thing that you talk about a lot, Cecile, and this work goes over again and again, is making the implicit explicit. Taking these assumptions that we've made about ourselves, about others, about what needs to get done, and really clarifying them and kind of leaving no stone unturned in that process, being thorough about that. And where that most directly impacted me was kind of on an emotional level when it comes to working with others. That if something wasn't a good fit, like if I didn't see eye to eye with someone, and I think it can be so easy when there's a lot at stake, when we're trying to accomplish things that are important to us. It's really easy for that to feel personal. Like this person really doesn't like me or doesn't care about what's important, and I think that's like a primal thing. I think that, not to get too psychological about it, but I think that's like this basic attachment stuff that I was bringing in to a situation that maybe the issue really was technical, or maybe it was about roles, or at the end of the day, that was a place where we could leverage change without me or the other person. I'm not the only one that projects stuff, but I was really noticing it with myself a lot in the training. Like there would be these fundamental disagreements that I'd have with some of my classmates, just in terms of meaning making, and that over the course of going through all this material and working together, and this root view that is so helpful, that like tension is good, that when a tension is coming up, that's this incredible creative potential, and that we each have a chance to grow with it if we stay engaged, if we don't close down. And it was like there was this amazing structure that was saying, hey, don't close down, hey, we're here for each other, hey, ultimately we want to connect, we want to move forward. And what I found was I ended up building these amazing connections with people and seeing these incredible gifts that they had, and this vision they had that I could never have accessed on my own. And that when I could put aside this sense of I'm not okay or they're not okay, and I could really see like there's something in the roles we're playing or in the way we're going about this that isn't compatible, and how do we shift that? That I'm just so grateful to have been able to have that experience of expanding my world, and it like my heart can hold people that it wouldn't have been able to hold before. And I
nice.
think vice versa. So I'm super grateful for that.
Thank you, Jamie. And I'm going to ask Atika to go next because she has to leave as well. So yeah, I'd love to hear about what's been so most powerful for you so far in the course, Atika.
So I would say the course has been acting, well, there are two things which, well, there are many things. And today, perhaps I will not really talk about the content in itself, which is absolutely amazing, but rather the structure and the environment around it, which has provided me with mainly two things. The first one is I had already been looking into a lot of at least elements that are included in Collab, and it kind of helped me amplify it. So getting even more information, but also amplifying the knowledge that I'm starting to accumulate and assimilate. So it's really a great environment to, it's like, it kind of amplifies the effect of all the things that I'm doing around it. And the second thing, very importantly for me, is that the group that I'm experiencing Collab with is such a wonderful group of loving people, and I've going through all the different challenges in my life, very positive challenges and sometimes difficult challenges. I've needed I've needed to create myself a place to re-energize, to rest, and to really maybe take a step back and find, let's say, build my confidence in myself, right? Around not only my expertise, around my work, but also as a human being. And I have to say that every week I kind of look forward to all those, conversations we have on Facebook and the meetings we have on a weekly basis, because I find myself in a group I feel very comfortable with, and that really helps me build my confidence, so I'm able to better do the things that I do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Atika. And how about you, Kristen? What's been most powerful for you about the course so far?
Yeah, thanks. I would echo what Atika shared. So beyond the content, which is incredible, I think that the course has given me an opportunity to really integrate the learning in a way where I feel like it's more embodied. And then to be able to practice first in a safe space to, for instance, practice facilitation skills before I take it out into my team and experiment with it there. And that has been, it's invaluable.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks to all of you guys. Yeah, so I think given that as sort of a backdrop as to why do collaborative leadership and how the course can help with that, we wanted to get into some of the details of what we'll cover in the course. And as Jamie was mentioning, one of the ways that Collab works is to name leadership, to make it explicit, and to give people healthy power over their work. And part of this takes up building up your own personal skills and adding tools to your own leadership toolbox to understand how to create generative, healthy, powerful leadership. And part of it is putting it into action and learning through that integration application. So this remote learning program is for leaders, coaches, consultants, and visionaries who really want and who resonate with this value of democratic or participatory leadership and want to see and address the power dynamics and hierarchies in your team, often ones that no one wants to talk about or knows how to talk about, really, and how to build up leadership that's generative rather than dominating. So we're going to take a look at our 10 sessions. The course is broken up into 10 different sections, and we meet once a week for 2 hours virtually. The first session is our course orientation and an overview of the theory, because there is a really important theory component to this that acts as a map to help us orient and navigate in this domain of participatory leadership. Second session is about integrating life-changing facilitation, and this is where we dig into some of the mechanics of the tools, how to use them, how to apply them, and how to begin teaching them. And session 3 will focus on our own personal development. What does it take to be a self-managing individual? What does it take to be that self-managing person in a self-organizing team? There's often misalignment on this level across teams, and it creates a lot of stress and problems. So we spent some time working on that. And the fourth session will dig into decision-making. What are different kinds of decision-making we could use in teams, and explicitly what's a effective methodology for making collaborative decisions efficiently and also effectively. Session 5, we'll talk about mapping your team. Who's doing what? Who has what authority to get what done? Where are these boundaries? How do they serve to help us all function more effectively? And that leads us into our 6th session, which is talking about collaborative accountability systems. How do we co-lead? How do we co-manage each other and ourselves? And so we need to unpack what does accountability really mean, and how do we implement that concretely. Session 7, we'll begin to spend a little more time on implementation, and there are some specific tips and tactics that can help across the board, but then we'll also use your experience to understand how this works in action in new teams. And session 8, we'll also spend some time on implementation, as well as talking about some of the other conversations that are critical for teams to have, and how to have those efficiently, like interpersonal conflict. How do you deal with that? Or perhaps it's a question of your budget. How do you manage that type of work together when we're co-leading? And session 9, we'll get into some more facilitation tips and tricks, and begin to pull together all the concepts in the course and lead us into our final session, which is post exam. We'll be debriefing that and working to help you create a clear plan of action going forward for yourself and your team. So those are the 10 sessions. And in addition to those 10 sessions, we have 5 different specific learning activities. A is your own personal development topic. We want you to understand for yourself what you are working on, and that's something we'll be revisiting throughout the course. We'll also help you implement a personal task tracking project and understand both the why that's important and get to the mechanics of it, which can often be difficult and frustrating. So we're here to make that easier. We will also invite you to take on a scopes and roles project, which is about mapping your current team. What teams do you have? What roles do you have? Are they working? What might need to change? So that'll be a practical project. And in addition to that, we'll also work on introducing and onboarding a new team. And this will be done through application throughout the course. You'll be having a chance to apply this work to a team, at least one. You can choose more than one, and using that as fodder for questions and support and coaching. So with that, Rebecca's going to share some top learning points and that you can expect from the course.
Great, thanks, Cecile. So I'll just go into some of these top things that I experienced during the course and after, now that I've been practicing and reflecting on what I've learned in the projects that I had, and currently I'm still working on, for sure. And so the first one I'll start with is intentional grounded leadership. And what that means for me is that through the course, I pieced together all the things that I had learned about leadership in the past, because we have a whole lifetime of things we've learned about what it means to be a leader and what healthy, powerful leadership means. And then the course really allowed me to start there and build upon that instead of just this whole new idea. It really kind of builds upon that. And like Cecile said, there are some projects that really helped with that. One is the somatic development project, or this awareness about what's happening inside your body with moments that are uncomfortable or are not uncomfortable. And then the personal development topic really was great. And as Kristen mentioned earlier, the practice of facilitating the actual sessions was invaluable. You can see yourself grow throughout the 10 sessions, which is kind of incredible. And so that leads me to the next one of something where I'm always thinking about in the collectives I'm a part of is decision making, and how do we make it in a consensus basis or in a collective basis. So practicing with the collective decision making tools at Round Sky and in the course, and getting an understanding of why, how and why we make these decisions, and then who does everyone need to agree on everything, and really kind of honing in on that and using the sessions as a place to work out those tricky and nitty-gritty details. So there's that. And then the next, which I think possibly might be the most important for me, was this facilitate better meetings, productive meetings with clear outcomes. So this one's huge, because who hasn't been in a poorly facilitated meeting, or who hasn't said I hate meetings or there's too many meetings? And the program really offers both the tools and the practice and the talking through the struggles of what's happening in your meetings, and really honing in on like what needs to change there. So that, and then there's the process of really listening in meetings is really helpful. It's kind of built into the process of the standard meeting practice. And the meetings that I've facilitated just have been much more smooth than they were in the past. So that's huge, I think, for any team, whether you're a collective or you're an association or you're a nonprofit. Just we have meetings in all these different areas. And then getting effective and workable accountability. So this is something that we often talk about, is who's going to do that, and did this get done? So the program really lays out how do you build that culture of accountability and nurture it and know when it's not working and know what to do about it, right? Often people forget to do something, but how do we call that out in a way that still builds up the team but doesn't single someone? So there's that aspect. And I've used these skills over and over again. I'm using them in my relationships, in my family, in my work. I mean, obviously I work at Brown Sky, so I use them here, but also outside of my work, my unpaid work. So it's very valuable. And so with that, I'll pass it back to you, Cecile, about what's included.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. And I just wanted to say, it looks like we're coming up on the top of, or the bottom of the hour, the half hour. And so in order to give enough time for some questions and comments, I'm going to move through this quickly, but we may also go over by a few minutes. If you need to leave, please feel free, but we are going to still leave some time for questions here. So briefly, in addition to all of the content that you've just heard about and the benefits, we have some concrete things that are included in this. We have an instruction manual and card deck and access to our online course, CoLab 101. We have our weekly live training calls, and you will get both instruction and practice facilitating during these meetings. You'll have a connection to a community of mission-driven leaders like yourself, and you'll get the personalized feedback on both your facilitation, but also on your particular implementation and your specific situation. You'll also get practical templates and forms and visuals that will help you, that you can apply in your own team. And at the end, you'll also be certified as a CoLab 101, CoLab Level 1, I should say, facilitator. And as part of the backdrop for this whole course, we have an online course platform and forums where you can both access the material and engage with other peers. So just briefly about the logistics, our CLCP1 runs for 10 sessions, small cohorts, 3 to 5 people. This really enables the intimacy to build and the opportunity for practice in session. It's really, really critical. And in between each session, you'll have the course platform, which I mentioned, and homework. And the certification exam enables you to demonstrate your integration of all of these key components. And our next cohort, our spring cohort, will launch the week of April 16th. And the application deadline is March 31st. So if you want to apply, you can jump on. It's fairly straightforward to just apply for the program. The cost itself is $2,500, and we do accept payment plans. If you are a Vermont resident, you may also qualify for VSAC funding, and email us. We can get you some details about that. And we also have a referral policy that puts 20% of the paid tuition from anyone you refer towards your course fees. So we really want to work with you. We don't want money to be an obstacle in this regard. So on that note, I'll pass it back to you, Rebecca, for a Q&A.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. You can unmute your mic if you'd like to ask a question that way, or you can put it in the chat box if you prefer. And I'll just start with a pretty common question that we get while folks think about your question. And one is, what if I don't have a team that I can practice this with? Like, what is this still useful for me?
And that's a great question. What I recommend to students who aren't formally participating in a paid team is to look at all your volunteer commitments, because often we are participating in some kind of activity, even if it's not terribly time consuming, with our with our spiritual groups, churches, synagogues, etc. There's also our schools. Sometimes we have children that are in schools and participating in those volunteer environments. And last but not least, all of us pretty much, or a large percentage of us, live in some kind of family situation. So we live in a situation with other people in a home. And that is a fabulous team to practice with as well.
Absolutely. Any questions from our participants here? Anything that came up from very specific to broader, a question for Kristen, possibly as a current student? You'll unmute your mic to do that. Great. Well, my email's open, Rebecca@roundskysolutions.com. If questions come up for people, the application is at the bottom of our page with all the information, which is right here, roundskysolutions.com/CLCP1 there. And I'll email that out after as well. So if you have any questions, please reach out. All right. And feel free to open your mics and say goodbye if you'd like.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Great. All right.